OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. The forming of this organization was a result of the Seven Sisters. The Seven Sisters were the leading oil companies after World War II. These companies were the following: Standard Oil of New Jersey, Royal Dutch Shell, Anglo-Persian Company, Standard Oil of New York, Standard Oil of California, Gulf Oil, and Texaco. Seven Sisters' reign fell short due to their lack of understanding the oil market, because they did not have a standard unit price for the petroleum. Since the Seven Sisters didn't have a standard unit price, when the price of oil was lowered without asking, it angered the countries whom they supplied it to. As a result of this, in 1959, several oil-producing countries decided to have a meeting in Cairo where they would come up with a solution. They would discuss with the Seven Sisters to not have this occur again without the consult of the exporting countries. But even without warning, in 1960, the Seven Sisters once again lowered the prices. As a result from that, in 1947, Venezuela approached four other oil-producing developing countries, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, to suggest that they should explore avenues for regular and closer cooperation on oil matters. On September 10, 1960, these countries sent a delegate to Baghdad, Iraq, to discuss the urgent need to create an organization for the defense of, quote, their most important non-renewable natural resource, which from Iran, Fuad Rouhani; from Iraq, Dr. Tal'at al-Shaibani; from Kuwait, Ahmed Said Omar; from Saudi Arabia, Abdullah al-Tariki; from Venezuela, Dr. Juan Pablo Perez. In that meeting, they came up with their mission statement, which reads, "The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, hereinafter referred to as the Organization, created as a permanent intergovernmental organization in conformity with the resolutions of the Conference of Representatives held in Baghdad from September 10 to 14, 1960, shall carry out its functions in accordance with the provisions set." They also added articles, the second one saying, A. The principal aim of the organization shall be the coordination and unification of petroleum policies of member countries and the determination of the best means for safeguarding their interests individually and collectively. B. The organization shall devise ways and means of ensuring stabilization of prices in international oil markets with the view of eliminating harmful and unnecessary fluctuations. C. Due regard shall be given at all times to the interests of producing nations and to the necessity of securing a steady income to the producing countries, an efficient, economic, and regular supply of petroleum to consuming nations, and a fair return to the capital to those investing in the petroleum industry. OPEC caused many political and economic disputes, such as the oil embargo of 1973. That was when OPEC, being mostly made up of Islamic countries, decided to cut out oil exports to the United States and other nations that provided military aid to Israel in the Yom Kippur War of October 1973. Quote, "The Arab-dominated Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, announces the decision to cut oil exports to the United States and other nations that provided military aid to Israel in the Yom Kippur War of October 1973. The reductions continued at a rate of 5% per month until Israel retreated, and in December a full oil embargo was imposed on the United States and several other countries. Because of their dependence on foreign oil, these price manipulations prompted a serious energy crisis in the countries and seriously hurt their economies.
A region dominated by conflict, which time and again has put the controversial cartel's power to the test. In 1973, an OPEC oil embargo on the U.S. after the Arab-Israeli War introduced fuel rationing and long queues at stations across America. Then U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger called it political blackmail.
What would you say the 1973 Yom Kippur War marked in OPEC's history?
I think this was a huge watershed for OPEC. The 1973 oil embargo was really the first time that OPEC as an organization flexed its muscles on the global geopolitical stage.
In the 1980s, two of OPEC's largest producers, Iran and Iraq, fought a bitter war, and a decade which saw prices collapse to below $10 a barrel. The infighting within OPEC was legendary. For example, in the 1980s, when member states would convene in top hotels all around the world, the amount of production a member had would determine which floor they could book. Saudi Arabia would take the top position, and rivals Iran and Iraq would alternate at every meeting.
As a resolution, OPEC made the solemn declaration stating, they also reaffirmed that OPEC member countries, through the collective steadfast and cohesive defense of legitimate rights of the peoples, have served the larger and ultimate interest and progress of the world's community and, in doing so, have acted in the direction hoped by all developing countries, producers of raw materials, in defense of legitimate rights of their peoples. Among other things, they also stated, they hereby reject any allegation attributing to the price of petroleum the responsibility for the present instability of the world's economy, also stating that recent adjustments in the price of oil did not contribute but insignificantly to the high rates of inflation which have been generated within the economies of developed countries, basically by other causes. The way the world sees OPEC now is really different from how it saw it during the starting stage. OPEC is a turning point within a turning point, for countries like the US consider OPEC as an important matter when electing new leaders that can work along with such a powerful organization and its principles. OPEC's concern is not only responsible for the price control but also environmentally concerned. As a result of this, OPEC has been such a controversial topic throughout its years, yet such a turning point in daily lives worldwide. When OPEC wants to raise the price of crude oil, it simply reduces production. The mere threat of oil reduction can raise gas prices, said Kevin Bonser and Ed Grabianowski. Gasoline prices rise because of the short supply. When oil production is unstable, gas companies get nervous. OPEC has been criticized for not meeting its responsibilities fully, in other words, taking
what they can
advantage
do
of its
each
power.
of their
But
countries,
throughout
because
several meetings
everyone's
and
cutting
press
back production.
conferences,
They all
they
have their own
justified others.
social programs that are in place too. And I think collectively, I think for everybody, this is a tough time.
It is. In fact, all the member countries are doing their part. We have, according to the results of the meeting, relatively good compliance. And we have seen, some stability now in the market. At least OPEC had managed to put sort of a floor with some increases recently. But we recognize that these are very, very difficult times, given, the economic downturn, the global economic downturn. And it will be tough for us in the member countries with lower revenues, and even the member countries who had investment income, their foreign assets had been also greatly affected. So it will be for a while. Our hope, of course, that this crisis, the financial crisis and economic crisis, will be, short-lived. Doesn't look that way, and I think we in the member countries have to prepare ourselves at least until we see some recovery, perhaps in 2010.
And we hear.
Since then, new countries have joined OPEC, including Algeria, Nigeria, Libya, Qatar, Ecuador, Angola, and the United Arab Emirates. The economy of these countries, along with the rest of the world, is so dependent on oil, but that it is easy to see why the countries are hanging over a barrel. Before OPEC, there was no safety net within the oil world. Hence, now that we have it, we value it. Became the world's safety net by setting standards and setting those standards within themselves. In other words, expectations in order to be a successful organization. They have proven from the start that their only goal is to help create stability, and they have done so for 50 years. OPEC themselves have recognized this, claiming 50 years old as success within itself, and that success is considered the turning point for these countries that are hanging over a barrel.